what we're looking at here, we're looking at a patch panel that somebody put in previously. Now, I can take this out, I can start all over and make a new piece for it and then butt weld it in there if I wanted to. But the owner of the vehicle is on a very tight, strict budget on restoring this car, and we're basically repairing what's already on here. If I was to cut this out, clean all this up, make a new piece for it, that would take several hours of expensive labor. So for me to go ahead and just clean up what's on here, it's going to save the owner a lot of money, and it's going to look professional, it's going to be professional, and it'll save me a lot of time and labor. So before we go any further, I wanted to explain that to you. I don't want anybody to think out there that I'm a hack, because I get that all the time. Well, not all the time, but a lot of times, mainly from people that don't know what they're doing. So this is not a hack job, okay? This right here is a kind of a semi-hack job, and that's why I'm cleaning the weld up.
Welcome to D.I.Y. Automotive School with my friend Pete and Minnie, the body shop girl. It's everything you need to know about cars and more.
So if you look right here, I'm doing a continuous weld to weld all this in here, if that makes any sense. And the way that I'm doing that, it's called stitch welding. We're not taking the welder and going all the way across and then go all the way down and all the way down, because what that'll do, that'll warp this whole area. This whole area of this fender will be warped. So what I want to do is I want to take my time and I want to weld that on there properly without doing any warpage. Does that make any sense? So the previous guy that fixed this, he welded it on here, and you can see that, and this is, to me, is called a slag weld. I'm thinking that he used a non-gas welder, non-gas wire, and instead of welding it up all the way, he just kind of went like this, and it might have been done with an arc welder as well. This is not professional welding at all. This is what we're going to be doing right here. This is called a stitch weld. And another reason I'm going to weld this all up is because there's air. There's air pockets all the way around. And to make a nice tight weld and a finished panel, it has to be welded all the way across. So most of the times, people would take their welder and they would start doing this, okay? And they would go all the way across it like that and then stop there. And sometimes they would let it cool down, and sometimes they wouldn't. They would keep on going. And the way that they would do this one is they would probably start down here and go up with it. Because when you're welding down and you start right here, the weld that you're putting on here is going to fall down. So it's better to start at the bottom and do your weld going up, because as you're going up, this is cooling and it's holding all the weld that is still liquefied, we might say, and it's not letting it fall down. The way we're going to do it is called a stitch weld. And what a stitch weld is you're going to take your trigger and you're going to click it just like this. Click, 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 click. And as you're doing that, you're moving it just like this. Kind of like you're stitching a piece of material. Do you see that? Watch. In and out, in and out, in and out. And we're not going to hold it at an angle. We're going to hold it straight on, just like this. And we're going to go just like that. And another thing that we're going to do, we're not going to do the whole section here. Remember what I told you, it's going to warp it. We're going to do a little section like this, then I'm going to come over here, I'm going to do a little section here, then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do a little section over here, then I'll come over here and do a little section over here, and I'll zigzag myself back and forth doing my stitch weld as I'm click, 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 click on the trigger. And then what that will do, that will let this cool down, this will cool down, this will cool down, this will cool down. But to help it out, what I have here is I got a little cup with some water in it, and then I got this sponge. All right, and after I do my welds, each weld, I'll take my sponge and I'll tap it like this to cool that weld down. So if it shrinks in, if it warps in from the sponge, it'll suck it back out. Now, I'm not going to guarantee that you won't get any warpage at all on here. All right, the only way you're not going to get any warpage at all is if you weld a little spot up like that and you wait about 20 minutes. Then you weld a little spot over here, you wait about 20 minutes. You weld a little spot over here, you wait 20 minutes. Do you see? So to get no warpage at all, or another thing you can do is use a MIG welder. I'm sorry, a TIG welder. If you have a TIG welder and you want to weld it, then you won't get any warpage. But MIG welding, you will get warpage. Another thing, it depends on what wire you're using. Normally, I would be using 023. I ran out of 023, so I have 030 in here. I have 30 gauge in here. You have to make sure that you got your welder set properly for the wire you're using and the heat range to make sure that you can do this properly without burning holes through it and also getting a good penetration. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of this stitch welding across here and see what it looks like. Now that we've welded that up, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grind the weld down. And for that operation, I'm going to go ahead and use a flapper disc. I believe this is 36 grit, or it was. It's actually used and abused, but we're going to go ahead and use that on a 4-inch angle grinder to start out with. So, what we have is a completed stitch welded job. Alright, we went ahead and repaired this to go ahead and finish the job out. We saved the customer a lot of money, saved me a lot of labor, and this is ready for body work. Always remember, when you're doing sheet metal work, the best weld that you can do, the best way to weld sheet metal or two pieces of sheet metal together is a stitch weld. Stitch welding is the way to go when it comes to this with a MIG welder. You saw how nice and clean those welds were, and everything worked out great. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete, finishing up the welding on this fender so I can start doing the body work. Take it easy.
Thanks for watching D.I.Y. Automotive School. Classes don't stop till you know everything.